told you, it still makes enough noise when you need it to, this car. Thank you very much. You too. I might have my own seen-through glass coffee these days, but there's no denying the continued convenience of Starbucks when you're on the road. Stop judging me. Hello one and all, welcome to Seen Through Glass. Yes, we're on another adventure. If you missed my last video, welcome to this stunning Jaguar F-Type R convertible, which I picked up from Lucas Jaguar West London a few days ago. To celebrate having an F-Type back on the channel, I'm headed up to Scotland for a fairly specific reason, which will become clear in the following video. But to get there, I'm taking the kind of scenic route north via both the Peak District and the Lake District to give myself a chance to kind of figure out this car, because until a few days ago, I hadn't driven this new F-Type R, and I'm excited to find out what it's all about. I've got to be honest, I'm not usually a huge fan of soft-top convertibles, mainly because of the way they look when the roof is up. So for as long as I have this car, which I think officially according to Jaguar paperwork is something like the 15th of December, but essentially till I buy my own F-Type, I'm going to predominantly try and use it with the roof down. And I have to say, this is one of my favourite features so far. One of the things I love about this car is how quickly you can put the roof down, simply with the push of a button over here. There it goes. Anyway, welcome to the Peak District. I think it opened up in the 1950s or so, and you would think that because of the name, it was a very mountainous region with many peaks, but actually it's nothing to do with it. Apparently the name comes from an old Anglo-Saxon settlement that used to be here back in the day. We're here because it's also got some stunning driving roads, and the best thing about being in a convertible sports car is you get to enjoy the car and all the scenery at the same time. It's so interesting because when I picked this car up, I said it's amazing how many sort of elements have not really changed over the years on the F-Type. It all felt quite familiar. But now I'm out here driving this thing, I can tell you so much has changed for the F-Type R over the last 4.5 years. We have to start with the most noticeable change, which of course is the sound. It's still there, it's just muted. And this is more a sign of the times really than anything Jaguar have done. Here in the EU now, we've got to have these filters in our exhaust, which just means we've kind of lost the crackles, they're pretty much gone. And it feels a bit more like an old school valve system. Nothing really happens until you get over 3,000 RPM or apply a whole load of pressure to that throttle pedal. But when it does open up, and especially at the top end of the revs, when you start punching through the gears, it sounds just as good as ever. And you know what? The fact that it only kicks in a bit later, it's kind of even more fun. It's a different kind of enjoyment. Before, it just was always making silly noises, where now, kind of look for chances just to go, like a little sneaky. But what we've lost in terms of silliness from the exhaust, we have gained in terms of driving dynamics. Of course, 25 horsepower up from the R that I used to have, 575 instead of 550, and you wouldn't think that that's a huge difference, but the fact that this now runs the all-wheel drive system means it feels so much faster. My God, it just sinks into the road, grips the tarmac, and sends you at God knows what speeds in that direction, whilst my old car, the old rear-wheel drive V8, would send you in that direction, into the field. You could just never get the power down. So that extra 25 horsepower, but that extra grip, just makes this car feel so quick. But the two things which I'm really loving, the two major changes in my mind at least, are firstly the steering, which is now so precise. literally, you look at an apex and you're there. It reminds me of the Project 8, which always felt like you could go into any corner 20 or 30 miles an hour quicker than you did. And this car has that same kind of feeling. Every time I slow down and I turn in, I'm like, why did I slow down so much? I could have just chucked it in, I would have been fine. And the other thing that reminds me of the Project 8, because it's the same as the Project 8, is the gearbox. This gearbox, an 8-speed ZF, it is crisp, it is sharp, but it kicks you in the back. And it is a proper feel. So many new, modern, automatic gearboxes are too smooth. You don't even notice the gears are changing. And whilst, of course, in this sort of comfier setting, it is all just very smooth and buttery and lovely, once you get driving, it is so good. I am starting to really get excited about this. Because when I first started to, press on, I was like, oh, we have lost a lot of the F-Type persona in that soundtrack. And I drove the P450 in the last year, and I kind of went, it's fine. This is the baby V8. In the R, maybe it's a bit more. It's not. The silly noise has gone. But what you gain means that I am so excited about the next few days and getting to have a proper go in this thing. Oh, they've just made the best all-round everyday GT sports car even better. Even better! Remember how I said I was going to keep the roof down no matter what? Well, it was genuinely hailing a second ago. Full on hail. British springtime. What a joy. Anyway, this is Winnats Pass, one of the most scenic roads or picturesque roads in the entirety of the Peak District. Not exactly the most sort of fast driving road. It's narrow, there's lots of caravans and other traffic, but it's a pretty dramatic view. The name is a kind of corruption of probably Windy Gate, because as you can imagine, when you see this place, the wind swirling around here would be pretty intense. So yeah, if you're on foot and you get caught in a hailstorm like we were a second ago, can't imagine it's that enjoyable. But to drive down, especially in a convertible, this is where convertible really comes into its own. You can look up and see the very dramatic limestone gorge. But yeah, I'm going to take it nice and easy because everyone else is looking up and out their windows and not on the road ahead, and it's easy to get caught in a boo-boo. But I think we've managed to get through it in one piece. Very cool. Well, I reckon it's time to leave the Peak District. It's been epic, but I read somewhere that something like 13.5 million people tend to visit the Peak District each year. It felt like they were all there today. COVID restrictions have been quite massively eased here in England this week. It felt like everyone's just gone mad and gone to the Peak District, which I don't blame them, and it was nice to see people. It just meant that I was stumbling across a lot of slow-moving traffic on the nice driving roads. And yeah, it was great, but it's time to move on, because I've got to head 2 hours north now to the Lake District, which is where my hotel is tonight. So I just stopped off here in Glossop and got myself an espresso and a very nice looking halloumi burger from Duke's Cafe in Glossop. They were super nice. And yeah, going to keep the roof up for the motorway stint, and we're going to crack on to the Lake District. When I get there, I want to talk to you about a couple of things that I've started to notice which maybe I don't love about this car. Maybe you'll hate, who knows? But yeah, just, it's a learning experience today, and I'm learning a few things that I'm like, Anyway, for now, let's crack on. I'll be honest, I have no clue where I am, but I couldn't care less. I've spent the last 30 or 45 minutes just going, left, right, and getting lost out here in the Lake District and loving every second. And loving every second with that car. I am really starting to enjoy it. However, I did tease the fact that there are some things that I'm not quite gelling with yet or haven't quite figured out, so let's get into that. It's kind of mainly all around the infotainment system, or the optional extras that you don't really get with the new F-Type. To kick things off, something that's very specific to the convertible version, when you have the roof down on a sunny day, you can't really see the main screen. It sort of glares
back at you a lot, which is frustrating if you're using Apple CarPlay like I do in Google Maps, because you rely on that main screen, and yeah, as I say, you just can't really see it. Not an issue if you've got the coupe or if you've got the roof up, but just something that you have to kind of think about, as I say, if you've got a convertible and you want to get that roof down. But my main kind of bugbear currently is kind of the lack of extra kit for this car. It's now moved forward so much dynamically, it really is on a par with its competitors, if not better than some of its competitors. However, its competitors have introduced things like radar-guided cruise control and 360 surround parking cameras. Nothing which really adds to the actual driving experience, but they do add to the ownership experience. Over the last few days, I keep kind of reaching for things that, or looking for things that aren't there, and being a bit like, oh, okay, so, you know, most of the stuff, most of the kit that's on that car was on my car from 2014, 2015. So that hasn't really moved forward, and maybe it's not really going to matter. Trust me, when you're out here on a day like today on roads like this, it definitely doesn't matter. But if I'd spent all the money and come out of a 911 or one of the other competitors, would I feel a bit disappointed or let down? Potentially. We'll see over time whether I'm going to miss those things, whether they don't really matter. As I said, they definitely don't matter right now, because look at this place, look at this weather. The only button I care about in there is the exhaust button. Let's go. It's been so long since I've been in a hotel, I don't really know what to do with myself. It's kind of nice, but it's also a bit weird. Like the idea of sleeping somewhere that's not my house, which is what I've had to do for the last 12 or 18 months. I'm suddenly a bit like, it's all a bit strange. Anyway, this is the Cragwood Country Hotel just off Lake Windermere. It's the kind of perfect overnight stop for me on my way up to Scotland. And what a day it has been. Honestly, so good to spend time in an F-Type once again, and so many positives for my first few days with that car. The power, the speed, the handling, the gearbox, the overall dynamic package, just win, win, win. The soundtrack is kind of half a dozen of one, half a dozen of the other. For a modern day production car, unbelievable soundtrack, but it's not what the F-Type used to be. And then there's kind of one potential sticking point of the sort of lack of kit, but the only time I kind of noticed that was when I was on the motorway and I was a bit bored. The rest of the time, trust me, I couldn't have cared less, and overall I'm genuinely falling in love with that car already. It's only been a few days. So hopefully it's been an interesting insight for those of you that may be considering the new F-Type, maybe you've got the old F-Type or you own a 911 or whatever you might be thinking. Yeah, hopefully I've shone a light on what my kind of first few days have been like. So anyway, I'm gonna sit back, try and get more comfortable in this room, start reviewing footage, edit this video together, and then get ready to do it all again tomorrow. So if you don't want to miss any more content with the F-Type, subscribe now, turn on notifications, and I'll be back with you with more content very soon.